Good morning and welcome to the annual board workshop for the Indian Wells Valley Water District. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. And let's go ahead and have a pledge of allegiance. Let's see, Ty, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. All 6 verses. Let's have a roll call.
President Kaczynski is absent.
But he is on his way.
He's on his way. Vice President St. Amand.
Present.
Director Griffin.
Present.
Director Ritora.
Here.
Director Boyd is absent.
Great, thank you. Posting of the agenda declaration.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, January 15th, 2026.
Okay. So, conflict of interest declaration.
Vice President St. Amand.
None.
Director Griffin.
None.
Director Ritora.
No. Okay. Public questions and comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the board on any matter not on the agenda and over which the board has jurisdiction. However, no action may be taken by the board of directors on any item that is not appearing on the agenda. Non-agenda speakers are asked to limit their questions or presentations to 5 minutes. Public questions and comments on any item listed on the agenda will be accepted at the time that item is brought forth for consideration by the board. When you're recognized by the chair, please state your name and address for the record. There is no one present in the room with us. We have 2 callers online. Do we have any callers that want to make a comment? Oh, that's the coffee pot. That's a Zippo. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, item A, workshop issues, goals, and priorities. Let's see, the board is going to discuss the percentage of 3/4 inch residential customers paying the replenishment fee.
Okay, for this slide or this item, I took the last 12 months of residential usage in the 3/4 inch meter sector. For 3/4 inch, the first 20 HCF is considered tier 1. Anything above that in a month is tier 2, which would have the applicable replenishment fee attached to it. So you can see in blue on this graph is the total number of active accounts during that month.
Okay.
The orange is those accounts that went into tier 2. You see the biggest month for tier 2 usage is in August, where just over 3,500 accounts out of 11,250 did hit that tier 2 mark.
Okay. And for the public, the 3/4 inch meter is a typical residential meter.
Yeah, we have just a handful of 1 inch, but yeah.
So about a third of the customers, maybe just a little bit shy of a third of the customers are pushed into the tier 2 in August.
In August,
hot,
yeah.
the backside of the sun, and they're irrigating and using swamp coolers.
Exactly.
So Ty, March looks like an anomaly. Like if you look at this and you put March down similar to February and April before and after, you'll see a clear trend of lower use during the winter, increasing use during the summer, which makes perfect sense. People are using more water, so more people are likely to get into tier 2. Any idea what may have happened in March that pushed so many users up and over? It just seems like an anomaly.
I don't remember. It's been almost a year. It could have been a warm March. I don't know.
Yeah, just interesting, because other than that, it looks like a pretty predictable pattern.
Right, exactly. And that I could probably look at previous Marches to see where that kind of holds, but yeah, I don't have that answer right now.
All right. Do we have any questions from the directors for Ty about this? Stan?
Yeah, I'm the one that asked for this thing to be put on, and what I had asked for was actually a histogram of how many users were using X amount of water per year, which is an analytical tool that kind of indicates, well, a lot of things actually, mostly about water rates. Appreciate what he's done here, but it doesn't really provide the information that I had requested.
So,
I'll look at it to see what, if I can draw any conclusions from it. But again, what I wanted was a histogram based upon water usage, which means something to me, but
so Stan, what would be on the?
you're right, this is obvious. This is a logical result, but it doesn't tell us anything about the water usage relative to our cost or fees.
Yeah, the
pardon me.
histogram would be organized by water usage. So it would be, August would be on the left-hand side, then September, then July, and so forth. March would show up as an anomaly. It looks like a little bit like a curve.
I just find it interesting, that on an average, less than 2,000 of our customers are paying the replenishment fee. So I was curious to know that, how many of the households in town were actually affected by the replenishment fee. So I appreciate that you did this. And I guess I'm kind of confused at what Stan exactly wants. So if we could discuss that so I could understand a little better.
Oh, well, it's a histogram is a standard analytical tool. And so what you'd have is on the bottom, you'd have water usage in water units or whatever units you want. And then how many people were using that much, starting with a low number and then going to a higher number. So you can look at the effect of your fees primarily. I can get together with you after the meeting if you'd like to explain it in detail. This gives information, and I'm not trying to poo-poo that. It just doesn't give what I
Wasn't quite
was
what you
hoping
wanted.
it would give.
So,
Okay.
so what would be on the y-axis then?
The y-axis is the number of residential meters at any given units of water use. I should have probably been a little more clear in what I was asking for. And I agree with Chuck, this does give information, but it doesn't go back and give you any idea of how cost impacts the histogram.
So I'm going to recommend that we have this discussion with Director Otoro after the meeting so he can describe to you more explicitly what he's looking for.
Yeah, because we're wondering if it's cumulative over the year annually, like usage for the whole year or just by month?
Well, let's,
Yeah.
he'll need to take some
Can do
time to
it.
sit down with our general manager and with Renee and Ty to discuss that. So
Okay.
Unless there's
so
a-
to better clarify, just so I'm on the same page, because looking at this chart, I can see that we have approximately 11,000 customers, correct?
I think
In
that-
3/4 inch meter.
Yeah.
And then if we look at that, you would like to know what the water usage is for those customers. But if we look at the blue lines are what pays our bills. And then we look at the orange line, and the orange line, in my opinion, is what gets paid to the groundwater authority that the water district never gets to see because it's a pass-through. And then those are the customers that are being, the residents in this valley that are being affected by the replenishment fee. And so that's what I wanted to know was what was the percentage of people that, of our customers, was affecting their daily household lives by having to pay this replenishment fee. And so we can look at that and say that in February, it looks like there was approximately maybe 700 people. And then in April, it stayed, maybe went up, but in July, we see that it went up to 3,000 people
Mhm.
or 3,000 customers. So that's what I wanted to know. So
And it does give that information, I think. That's
okay.
fine.
All right, so let's go ahead then, unless there are objections, move to the next slide, please.
This was just informational of what the threshold is for tier 1 versus tier 2 for meter size, just for reference.
And that came up earlier in the last meeting there. So you can, as you can see, I think there was discussion, there was a presumption that everybody stepped into tier 2 at the same place, and that's not true. So we're just clarifying that here.
So for the public, HCF is 100 cubic feet. So imagine a cube 100 feet on an edge and 100 feet tall of water. And that's a significant amount of water.
148 gallons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. This looks like a Renee report. Is that correct?
Yes, we can move on if there's no more questions for Ty on anything.
Oh, yeah, I don't have
Or
any.
just go back.
Right.
Oh, there's a public question.
All right, go ahead, caller. Please state your name and city of residence when you're on.
Yes, this is Renee West Delusk. I live within Ridgecrest city limits.
Good morning, Renee.
Good morning. I just want to get clarification. So roughly, you're saying 3,000 customers out of the 11,000 on the 3/4 inch pipe
Meter.
size are in tier 2 and end up paying a chunk of the replenishment fee.
During the high water usage months, yes.
Okay. So that's a little bit over 25%. Is that,
I guess about 30% of the 3/4 inch meter hookups have some tier 2 fee. Now, it doesn't
Okay.
show you how far into tier 2 they are or what their fees are, just how many people are actually pushing into it. It could be a couple of thousand gallons into tier 2. It could be even worse than that. We don't know. We don't have that information from that chart.
It's also worth noting that during the colder winter months, that's about closer to 10%. So if you looked at the overall average of the year, it's probably somewhere between that 10 and 30, they might say 15 to 20% of the people are affected. If you looked at how many people are affected for the whole year.
Would you mind going back to that previous chart that showed the meter size? Because Renee is who asked the question at the last meeting about the college and other sizes. So Renee, if you're there, I just wanted to point out, let me get to my calculator. If let's say the college or you as a 3/4 inch customer, in order for you to get to tier 2, you would have to use I'm not very good this morning.
It's public math. It's never
Yeah.
good.
14,000 gallons of water at your household. But for the college to get into tier 2, they would have to use 777,000 gallons of water, a little over, almost 778. So there's quite a difference of water before they ever get to that tier 2. So that was what we were explaining about the different size meter and how the allocation changed because of that.
okay, so basically it takes less water for the college to get to tier 2?
They have to use a lot more water than a residential meter in order to get to tier 2.
Because you were saying 14,000 for a residential customer to get
And-
to tier 2, but then you said,
And nearly $1 million in order for $750,000 for the college to get into tier 2.
oh, because he mentioned 770
Thousand.
770,000.
thousands. Okay, I
Yeah.
thought you were
Yes.
saying acre feet or something. Okay.
No,
Good
no, that
Lord,
was in
no.
gallons. I was trying
Okay.
to break it down to gallons so you could see that they could use a lot of water before it actually affected that customer and putting them into tier 2. And I believe the fairgrounds also has a large meter, so they would be the same way.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
Renee.
I just wanted to clarify, aren't the large water users such as the government agencies like the school district, the college. I don't know if the hospital's on a meter because they have their own well. Aren't those entities like those paying the bulk of the replenishment fee?
No. No, I think their allocation is so high because of their meter charge that they're not being charged.
I mean, during the summer months, yes, some of those organizations do hit that tier 2, absolutely. But they all have a larger allowance due to the size of their meters.
But what about the school district, Sierra Sands Unified School District? They did have a complaint and they wanted their fees adjusted. I know they complained last year. I don't know whatever happened to that.
I believe Miss Moore did come in to speak to the board about the replenishment fee, but I don't know where it ended up as far as.
She was recommended to go and talk to the Groundwater
Groundwater
Authority,
Authority.
which I believe she did, and they took no action.
Yeah, but there was no way for us to change this fee to the school district because it has to be the same under Prop 218 for all ratepayers.
Okay, but like the school district probably uses less water in the summer.
I would think they
Then-
use more in the summer to water their fields for the sporting events I mean, there's more showers, the gym. I would think summertime their use is higher because they still practice football. They still have to maintain their fields. There may not be as many students in class at that time, but the maintenance still goes on.
Okay, I thought because they had fewer students, they would save water during the summer. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Renee. And I'm going to, Isabel, before we proceed, would you mind asking President Kaczynski about conflicts of interest?
President Kaczynski?
None,
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
and present. And I want to, and I want to apologize. I had, believe it or not, I had a water emergency at the house. I had water leaks, and then I had right angle valves that wouldn't shut off, so I had to go down and shut off the whole, so all the water's off at the house. So that's not an excuse, but it all happened at the same time.
Well, thank you for your contribution to the water district.
Yeah, I know. Well, I found it because believe it or not, I got a water warning this morning. And I was able to find out what it was this morning and then try to take care of it. But I still have water off at the house.
And when it rains, it pours.
So I apologize. So I guess we are on A2, urban water use objectives.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead.
that would be me.
Yes.
Yeah, this is our second year that we've reported on the urban water use objectives, and it's going to be very similar to last year. Because they're still not requiring all items that are eventually going to be required in those reports. The evaporative cooler variance is not included in this yet, and we probably, as you'll see, don't need to do that for a while. Similar report, and they're kind of rolling out their new requirements slowly. So every year there'll be kind of one more thing that you'll have to do. Next year, we will have to categorize all of our commercial industrial users by type. Like, is it a car wash? Is it a bank? Is it a grocery store, hotel, whatever, and how many counts you have and that kind of stuff. So I find that if it wasn't for our consultant and our WaterView software, this would be very difficult to do. So I really appreciate the help that our consultant with that software program gives us when it comes to this. So I'll give you the summary. You can go to the next slide that we get that comes out of WaterView. Some of it, not everything on here is applicable to us, and you'll notice the population number is higher than probably you're used to seeing because we've decided to use I don't think it's 3.2 people per connection. So that changes things a little bit. And instead of going with the actual population through the census, which is a little lower, but you get to pick which one you want to use. So the residential projections at the bottom is what you kind of need to look at, where it says objective total and performance percentage. So for our residential target is 5,318 acre feet. And right now we're sitting at 4,366. So we're at 82% of our target. And in 2030, we'll be at 88. And then 2035, we'll be at 100%. So it won't be till 2040 that it shows that we might be above our target and that we may need to do something with some of the variances.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Does this this does not yet include any time of evap cooler
No, that's a
credit,
variance that
a
we would have
variance?
to
That,
get.
so this includes all water usage as we see it now, but no variances in this yet.
Yeah, just residential,
Okay.
indoor and outdoor.
Right.
And the Waterview does all the calculations for the outdoor stuff for us, which is nice. This does include water loss, and you'll see in my next presentation that our water loss percent will go down. Because,
Question? How does the software estimate population?
can we go back, please? I wasn't done with that slide.
We don't have any, okay.
They take that number from what's reported in our annual report to the state.
How do we estimate population?
And that is by, I think it's 3.2 people per connection.
Which is kind of a standard number.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because I want the public to know that we do not keep track of who's in their house.
No.
Yeah,
It's a calculated number.
Perfect, thank you.
Just since you asked the question, there are three options given by the state.
Mhm.
One is to use census data. One is to use, as Renee said, like certain number of people per residential
Connection.
house. I think they had different numbers for people who lived in townhomes or apartments. And what was the third option? I'm trying to remember what that was. There was the census data, there was that one, there was another one. So there were three options. We ended up choosing the one that was most beneficial to the water district in the sense we happen to believe it probably might overestimate the population, but it's legal and it keeps us in compliance, and that's what we want.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes. And this does not yet include commercial industrial connections yet, which is,
And I'll go ahead and
which will be
ask-
coming in the future.
I'm sorry, I'll finish my question with that. One is about the evaporative cooling.
Mhm.
Do you expect that objective total to come down once we start doing the evaporative cooling variance?
I don't think it'll affect the objective, which is the, the 42 gallons
Oh, I'm sorry,
per
yeah.
day. But it would affect our performance
Right, our performance.
percentage.
So we could,
Yes.
so it's a possibility. I'm just thinking by 2040, we might actually be in compliance.
Right.
You're using variances.
And they also take into account, and I guess we will go ahead and go to the next slide. Water loss, which I reported from this year, which was at 591 acre feet, and our target is like 360. But that's going to come down. This was from the last fiscal year. I'm getting myself confused because we are now going to be using a smaller percentage based on our most recent meter testing. And so our audit this year, it'll be lower, and you'll see that on the next presentation. But this is just kind of a summary of our comparison between, at the very bottom, final comparison of actual water use to water use objectives. So actual water use of 4,957, that takes into account water loss. And then your objective is 5,910. So that's where we're sitting right now. And we probably won't be out of compliance based if we stay kind of on the same path until 2040.
So just a quick public math system, water loss is about 10% of the total in that ballpark.
That's what it looks like for right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to add to that, that in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, water loss can go 30 to 40% of the system total.
Renee, is there a chart or a graph that shows how we're doing as far as the rest of the cities in the state or anything? Because
I don't have
I think we're probably doing exceptionally well.
There's a web page you can go to, and I've perused it on a number of occasions, and it talks about, I've seen cities that need to reduce upwards of 30 to 40% of their water use by 2040, and that's a significant reduction for those cities. So there are cities out there that are going to be significantly challenged to meet these standards, and we are one of the probably, I would say we're in the top 5 to 10% of cities that, as far as like where we're at today, most cities will have to make some sort of reduction. So we're doing exceptionally well, and we give a lot of that credit to the people who have been promoting water conservation here for decades.
Thank you.
Now, as I recall, the state had already programmed in reductions on the single-family residents in the outgoing years. I don't remember which years those were, but they were going to allow us to use less. When you factor that in, I mean, right now, it looks like we're doing exceptionally well, and that's great.
Have you do 25, 30, 35, and 40. And then you look at the row that says performance percent, you have 82, 88, 100. So that's how we are, based on the 82 gallons per capita today, and then they also change the ET, the evaporative transpiration, changes as we get, farther along the years, they reduce that. Don't know why.
So that graph basically says if we used the water today in 2025, 2030, 2035, or 2040, would we or would we not be in compliance? And it's not until you get out, because we're taking into account the water we use today with the higher standards that you talked about.
Yeah.
And what you see is that it's not until 2040 where we actually might need to see some reductions to be 100% compliant.
Yeah, thank you, George.
Sounds really good.
It is.
It's a good story for us.
It really is. What do you attribute the residential use going down so much for? Is it strictly through our ratepayers conservation?
Yeah.
It's gone quite a bit.
Pushing the conservation message now really hard for over 15 years, so.
Yeah.
And they've really done it, the community's done a really great job of reducing. Oh, of course, the replenishment fee helps. The higher the bill, the less water you want to use.
Thank you. Any
more questions on that particular report?
No, you can go ahead if you're
We
having
go-
more.
Go ahead, 2 slides. All right, so we also, every year, we have to submit a water loss report to the state. And this is a report we put together that takes into account water supplied, water consumed, water lost, some other data and stuff and cost. And then we have a third-party auditor that takes a look at all that and goes through it with us and makes sure that we are complying with everything. It's quite complicated. So let's go to the next slide. This is just part of the spreadsheet that you can see. We've got water supplied, so volume from your sources. And that is also adjusted based on, there's an error based on the meter testing. And we also take into account water in our tanks. So we look at how much water was in the tank beginning of the fiscal year, the end of the fiscal year. We take that into account. And then you get a water supplied number. Then we looked at consumption, and we take into account anything that might have been unbilled and unmetered. So if you have water that's being stolen, via theft, and we just use the default 0.25% because we really don't have a good handle on how much is being stolen out there. But we know it's happening. And then it also takes into account meter accuracy. And then they take even into account data handling errors, unauthorized consumption, lots of things. And then there's whole nother part of the spreadsheet that talks about your cost. And then we can go to the next slide, and then you get some of these kind of summary. Oh, wait. And then also each one of those has a grading criteria. So they ask you a bunch of questions about every one of those things, and we go through that all with the auditor, and then you get a score at the very end too about how you're doing in your water loss. Yeah, we have a solid like 58 or something like that, but that is not on a regular scale. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is kind of more of the summary kind of charts that you get. So over on the left, they take a look at your water loss, your real losses and all that, and how much you are losing in revenue based on your water losses. So for last year, they estimated we lost $251,000 in revenue based on our water loss and metering inaccuracy. And that's a little bit, that was better than the year before. And then you can look sort of these KPIs is kind of how you compare with other agencies. Your loss rate, your cost of the losses, infrastructure leak indexes, and so it came down to 19.5 gallons per connection per day is the estimate of what we're losing. So as our meters get more accurate, as we get a better handle on our water losses, then these numbers will go down and we'll have less revenue lost to water leakage, and metering inaccuracy is probably the biggest thing for us, which is that red bar on the left side. And that is the biggest one, is our customer metering inaccuracy. So
I remember last year that was a bit larger.
it was larger.
Yeah.
Yes, because what they've done is we do test all of our larger meters, I think it's above 2 inches, right? Every year. So this year, our auditor kind of took that testing and applied it uniformly to all of our meters. I'm not sure if I agree with her doing that, but that's what she did, because we don't randomly test our residential meters. Maybe, and I think it is something we need to do in the future. We should need to budget for pulling residential meters randomly and testing them and seeing how accurate they are. But we're also out there regularly replacing these meters now, which is good.
Right. Can you give me a quick definition of each of those categories? Real losses, systemic is one I don't quite understand. Customer metering, I understand, but real losses are ones that are, for instance, like when we're doing repairs on lines, having to drain systems, flush systems and such like that.
Correct.
That's where the NODAS truck really came in.
The stuff that we have a real handle on,
Have
that we
a
know.
real
what it is.
handle on that one.
Mhm.
Well, how about systemic data handling errors?
Systematic data.
Sorry, is that what this is? The
That's
system, yeah.
human error in inputting data into our customer billing system and things
Okay,
like that.
All right, it's pretty minor.
Mhm.
Obvious customer meeting inaccuracies is just unauthorized consumption
Is
Yeah.
theft, yeah.
and unbilled. I understand the other ones. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can,
Go ahead.
can you show me on this chart where the cost or where the lost revenue is for the replenishment fee? That is, if we're losing 500 acre feet, that we're paying the replenishment fee on 500 acre feet. Am I correct there?
It all depends. I have no idea if we could ever get a handle on that, because we don't know if the loss or the inaccurate meter would put that person into tier 2 or not. Yeah, because this doesn't take into account anything regarding our tiers.
I think, let's say we had a break on one of our transmission lines. Do we pay the replenishment fee on the water that's lost from the break?
Yes, we would.
I think he wants a ballpark for that.
There's no way with this particular report I can do
This
that.
data, okay.
Yeah.
I will say, when we were developing the rates, we did add a loss revenue into the replenishment fee calculation. So there is some accounting for that within our rates and budget.
Yeah, I remember you calculated there's a potential loss which would be subject to replenishment fee, and that went into the budget.
And that's why our revenue never quite matches the expenditure on the replenishment fee.
These reports are standardized throughout the entire state. Everybody's filling out the same information, the same spreadsheet. Yeah, we can't change this based on, our tier system and things like that. So
But just for Stan's clarification, right here, it shows real losses of 591 acre feet a year.
yes,
So in Stan's mind or my mind or the public's mind that's looking at it, it looks like we're losing 600 acre feet of water a year that we're paying a $2,000 replenishment fee on. And so that revenue is gone and it's a cost. But the way we've established the replenishment fee is we calculated that loss in and it's distributed across. So it's not an actual loss of that much money that we're losing revenue on because it was gone.
Very good.
Well, so, yeah, but our ratepayers, I mean, we're not losing it. I mean, we're getting the money in, but our ratepayers
It's spread, yes.
are bearing that cost.
Mm.
Right, yeah, okay. That was what I needed. Thank you for wanting. Wait.
I think I said last year, so I really like this because it gives you a tool to look at and say, where can we make reductions? Because we're looking at $250,000,000. Every little bit that you
Yes.
improve in there brings the savings.
Yeah, that's what they kind of hope you use this for, to take a look at where you can make some improvements.
And I think we decided last year that one you're really going to tackle is the metering accuracies with all the new meters and everything that are going in.
Yes.
And that's why we went to the ultrasonic meters going
Right.
forward, is for the accuracy.
How are you doing on those incidentally?
I think this year we've probably replaced about 350 meters with the ultrasonics. So, and we may have 50 of the original mechanical bases left. And once those are done, we're not ordering anymore. It's all going to be ultrasonic.
Okay, great.
But just to be clear,
Thank you.
in our accounting system and the way that we set up the replenishment fee, what the customers pay us in replenishment fee equals what we pay to the groundwater authority. So we're not taking money out of our internal, our own funds to pay a replenishment fee. Is that correct?
Sort of. There will be a slight, we pay more than we receive just based on the water loss that's calculated into our rates.
And how much is that?
Few $100,000.
Okay, so Stan, I think the one way to answer your question is we pay a few $100,000 out of our own funds that are not collected from our customers to cover this loss.
And so that would be from our fixed fee that is charged to every customer. It would be just part of that fee.
Right.
That way it's spread.
Right. So our ratepayers are paying for it, but through the
Yes.
fixed fee for these things, right? That's spread through all users. Yeah,
Business cost, yeah.
okay.
But the bottom line is our customers pay all of it.
All. Correct.
I mean,
Yeah,
regardless of what pot it comes out of, we're
We're
paying
paying it.
roughly $1.2 million for losses.
No,
No.
no,
couple $100,000.
yeah. All right. Yes, I'm looking at Ty to see if it looks, yeah, are you looking for a response to Stan about the amount we're paying in replenishment fee for losses? There's no way to put a real handle on that, as I understand. So out of all these losses of $250,000, how much of our replenishment fee, there's just no way of knowing.
Yeah, there's no way to know with this. No.
But that cost is within that losses, is that correct?
Correct.
So part of the $250,000 is replenishment fee and everything. So as that goes away, it all comes on. Okay. Any other questions for the board? I hear we have someone from the public. The caller? Yes?
Yes, this is Renee Westalusk. Again, I just want clarification. When you said there's 19.5 gallons, is it per residential customer in losses?
Per connection.
Per connection, so that includes the high water users as well as the residential ones?
This is, yes, it would be all.
Okay, so it's not just residential customers?
No, it's not. Mm-mm.
Residential
Not in
and
this one.
organizational and business.
Okay, and
Everybody.
then, what you're saying is when there was the Northwest transmission line break and you lost a lot of water, and then the Brady Street pipeline broke, all the water that was lost in those two transactions of, what is it, water lines breaking, that was spread among all the water district customers or connections to pay the replenishment fee on?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the water district didn't have to pay directly for those breaks, the replenishment fee on those breaking pipelines.
So the water district pays a replenishment fee on any amount of water over that which was graciously gifted to us by the Groundwater Authority. So not all of that water necessarily we would have to pay a replenishment fee on, but some portion of that water probably pushed us over the top of our allotment, and then we had to pay for that. Okay, go ahead.
It's also important to add, you have to flush those mains when you put them back into service too. So we had 2 breaks. We flushed the transmission main on the northwest side of town twice. So this would have even been a lower number this past year if that didn't happen.
Okay.
Those kind of events are calculated into our regular operation and maintenance budget. So some form of revenue is planned for that type of thing happening in the water district. Whether it be draining a tank, flushing a line, a broken line, you try to anticipate the best you can, okay?
And it also covers fire control. I mean, the fire department is not metered. If somebody's house catches on fire, we don't charge for that. It's spread through the customers.
Right.
It's calculated in as a loss, and we don't keep track of that.
Okay.
And then I have one other question, and this goes back to the prior topic. When you say you have 11,000, I guess it's residential ratepayers on the 3/4 inch pipe size or pipe diameter, does that also include small businesses?
No, that just residential.
Okay, so the small businesses are on a larger pipe
No,
diameter?
They may have 3/4, but they're classified as commercial.
Okay, okay. So they wouldn't be in that 3,000 category of residential water users that get into tier 2.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
And Renee, also just for a lot of businesses also have 2 meters. And residential homes even have 2 meters. They have a smaller 3/4 inch meter, and then they can get a larger meter for irrigation because they get a larger allotment of that water at tier 1. It does cost more to buy the second meter and have it installed, but a lot of customers do that.
Any other questions? Renee, and do you have anything else on this?
No, I do not, unless you
I
have more
have one
questions.
question. How much, with all this information that now goes into this database, which I like, I really do. How much staff time is taken up, would you say? Is it now that as you're learning to do it, has it become less? Was it hard at the beginning?
It's become, yeah, it was definitely much harder in the beginning. I've
Yeah.
got myself into a system now where I have a spreadsheet set up for all the inputs that I need to do this report every year. And then I have to gather data from Ty and gather data from operations and input it in there. And then I come into this particular spreadsheet and enter everything in there and look at all the grading. And then we go through it with the auditor. And we have to pay the auditor too. It's a
Right.
third party
The water auditor?
auditor. And there's a certification they have to go through to become a certified water
Right.
auditor. And the person that does the audit here internally cannot be also the auditor.
Okay.
So it has to be a third party.
I think they're valuable tools, both the urban water use and also the lost water audit report. I think all this is very useful tools. And I'm hoping that as time goes on, you're able to streamline how you do, because I guess you're the only one that puts the data into the system.
Correct. And then we have to upload it all to a portal for the state.
And that's, yeah. So there's no way, and I'm thinking outside the box here, is that things that you get from Ty or from John that eventually that, they automatically enter it on something on their computer and shoots over to you. I don't know if that can be done, but it helps minimize maybe what you have to do. Go to them for information and then put it in a system.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it down to a system now where I know what data I need to ask them for
Okay.
every year. So
All right. But I think it's valuable stuff. At first, I always had my qualms about it, but I think we can gain a lot of information from this. And it also tells us a lot about conservation. It tells us what customers are doing, everything from the water use objectives and where we're going to be in the future. And this loss thing is tremendous. So it may have been like pulling teeth at the beginning, but do you believe it's worth it?
Yeah,
Well-
it's, I'm hoping that the state eventually makes our lives that easier. I was part of a webinar a couple months ago where they're starting the process of creating a universal portal where everything, all the reports and everything is going to go to, and they're going to start sharing data with each other. So they're doing a little bit of that now, because there's also an annual report we do to the drinking water program.
Right.
And so some of this data is getting shared with that. So I don't have to re-enter data several times to do some of these reports. They're starting to share data with each other. So I'm hoping they'll eventually get to the point where we do have kind of a central database for everything that'll make our lives a little easier.
Now,
But there is a lot of,
Are all the
reporting.
numbers based on a physical year or a fiscal year? When
this
you-
is fiscal year.
It's a fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
So everything here is our fiscal
All
year,
fiscal.
including how about the urban water use?
Yes, fiscal year.
It's all fiscal year.
Mhm.
Okay,
Could you remind the public what our fiscal year is?
That's July to June.
Thank you.
thank you. And I believe, go ahead, Stan. I might have another one.
I think we've already gone over this, but I was somewhere else, obviously. If you go back to the chart in the left-hand column, the red is the customer metering inaccuracies.
Mhm.
Now, I thought that the majority of our water losses were from meter inaccuracies, or at least it seems to me that was what Don was trying to push for year after year. Can you explain?
That's where most of our revenue is lost. Yes.
I'm sorry.
That is where most of the revenue is lost, through customer
Yeah.
metering inaccuracies.
On the right, right.
The revenue, no, I wasn't looking at revenue. I'm looking at the actual, I'm assuming it's acre feet.
Yes.
Volume.
Yeah, and the red is a very small amount. Well, not small, but it's not certainly the largest amount. So we're now saying that the meters are not the major loss that we have in our system.
And not for volume, although we also take into account the meters at the well sites and at the arsenic treatment plants. There's also losses there on those meters, even though they are very accurate. There is still some small loss due to meter inaccuracy. And you do have leaks in the system where you're going to get losses that are not the result of loss through a meter. So there's leaks and flushings and maintenance and things like that that happen. So, and that some of that is just based on a standard percentage. I would honestly have to go back to the original spreadsheet and see how that all was calculated in order to give you an accurate answer.
Well, the reason over the last year or two, or maybe three, I've been pushing to get all of our meters updated to the newer meters that are more accurate is because I had been led to believe, rightly or wrongly, or maybe my misunderstanding, is that the meters were causing a lot of our losses.
Yeah, and this is actually better than last year because they have taken into account the more accurate meters that we have now.
So I guess I'm,
You're never going to get zero, but yeah.
So Dan, when you look at that chart on the far left and you see the large blue section and you say those are the real water, is it, are you asking where is that water loss?
He's
in-
asking about the red section.
Well, the
not
red
the-
section is what we know to be meter
That's
losses.
what he's asking about.
So, okay, well,
That's his question.
Okay.
Yeah. Is the meter, and you're right, Stan, as I remember, Don back always was concerned about the meter accuracy. That's why the new meters we have, and we're installing them, the type we're using have come about. That number used to be much larger. it's come down quite a bit. And Don, also, they always look at it from the standpoint of revenue. It's a huge revenue loss. So yes, it's something that we're still concentrating on. And I guess, John, correct me if I'm wrong, our hope is in the next few years that we have the very accurate meters in everywhere.
He's saying like.
Yes, field services out there, putting them in the ground as fast as they can.
Yeah.
But you also have to take in count when we receive these meters from the factory, like Neptune, they come with a percentage of inaccuracy as well.
Right.
So that adds up pretty quick when you know you have 11,000 plus in the ground.
Cumulative
So-
errors over thousands or 10,000
Yes, sir.
meters.
Yes, sir.
So there's always going to be something there.
Yes, 100%. And then the larger meter you get, the more, variance you have for that inaccuracy.
Mhm.
So it's not like our meters we've had several meters brought in and tested, and we had sent them off, and they're within spec. So it's just that spec that comes from the factory it adds up, and we've had more meters come in
Yeah.
to play over the past several years.
Okay, to get down to what my bottom line is, what I'm trying to do is figure out whether I should keep beating on George to get the meters
Well, you give 'em
installed, or installing the meters will not bring down the blue part.
They're installing them as quick as they can.
I understand,
And,
that,
and
understand
if-
that, but poor George is,
So, and I understand what Stan is saying. So like on that left chart, let's say we took the meter losses down to zero, you would still have a huge amount of water loss. This is what Stan is saying. He's saying, even if we got meters down to zero, we would still have a very large amount of water that we're losing. And I think he's asking, are we spending our money in the right place when, we're spending a lot of money to reduce what is a fairly small amount of red on the left? And what are we doing to address the larger blue area? Because should we be investing our money to tackle that problem? And if so, how would we do it?
yeah, very, very, very good.
And I think that comes to the upgrades we're making to our transmission pipeline and other older pipelines that we're going to be doing in town. I think that will help reduce that number.
There's a certain amount there that's always going to be there.
Yes, there's a
Based on
certain
operation.
percentage that's always going to be there and part
So
of
in
this.
an ideal world, that blue, if you didn't have pipelines that broke and or whatever it may be, in an ideal world, what would that be? It wouldn't be zero by a long shot, because you always have operational uses.
I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, I have no feel for it. Could it be half that big if we had no pipelines break at all?
But I think
Yeah.
what I'm going to do next year, I was just telling Ty, because this is only the second year, but
Okay.
now we get to a third year, I'm going to start pulling some of this out and doing some more analysis about how we're doing, year to year, and see how we're comparing and if things are, getting better.
So
Yeah.
just to clarify too, when you talk about real losses, that is a comparison of how much we measured that we pumped out of the ground using the meters at the well versus how much water went through our billable meters to customers. So that's what that number is. So that's what the discrepancy we're talking about is like, this is how much we pumped, this is how much we pushed through a meter to a customer and billed for, and there's that number. And then the question is,
And it also takes into account, accuracy of all those meters, difference in the tank levels. They try to take into account as much as they can. And then there's that, unknown of where the water went. We don't know, we can't account for it. So.
Right. But it's a good tool. I mean,
It is.
you can always, and the more you break it down into smaller chunks of what it represents, it gives operations and a chance to look at it and engineering, say, where can we make the improvement that's going to save us money?
If you look at it like an error budget, which I think George is trying to do, is you always spend your money where your largest error is, if indeed you can do something about it.
Yeah.
So
and the question
I've
is,
been under the understanding that our biggest error
Yeah.
was the meters. And so George, I owe you an apology for
Well, in
all
dollar,
of my critique.
no, there's no
no,
apology.
in dollar
We're
amounts,
all-
it is the largest. If I was looking strictly budget-wise, that'd be the first one I tackle, is
Yep.
the
I-
customer metering inaccuracies.
Again, Stan agrees with you, and he's
Yeah.
apologizing for getting George by the ankle and because George is moving forward to fix that,
Yeah.
address that issue.
But it also doesn't take into account, I mean, I personally don't feel we're losing as much as it's showing, because it's not taking into account all of the water that's in our system as far as pipes and, I mean, just in our infrastructure, there's a lot of water that has not went through a meter that has been pumped that is still in our system, even though it's not in a tank.
You're right.
I mean, it takes a lot of water to fill up the pipes, and that's not accounted for anywhere in this thing, so it's showing as a loss, even though it's in our infrastructure, still in the ground, because it hasn't been
Yeah.
went through a meter.
Can only account for so much. so,
Yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of these calculate based on industry standards.
Yes, it
There's
is.
so many things that are just industry standards, so much loss per meter,
Yep.
so much loss per this that are used in here. So this chart will never go to zero. It can't possibly.
One of the mysteries of the universe is the 10% loss rule, where if you're building a house or you're doing a project, you're going to lose about 10% of you need to order 10% more materials to complete the project. And it seems to work in every industry. And I don't know whether that's a sign that we're living in a simulation or whether that's just the humorous intent of the universe. But you're very close to that 10% number. And the trick is to get it down below 10% so that we're doing better than average.
All right. Do I have a caller that's on there? Caller, we're listening.
Yeah, so this is Renee West of Lusco. One of my questions is, what is the timeline to get all the meters changed out that have to be changed? Is it like 2 years from now, 3 years from now?
We've implemented a program that will replace all meters every 20 years. The meters that we are currently buying have a guarantee for, is it 15 or 20 years are guaranteed? I don't remember.
I believe it's 20.
I think it's 20 years. So like the accuracy of these meters is the newer meters is guaranteed to a very high degree out to 20 years. And so we've set 20 years as the time frame to replace all the meters. Now that means we won't have a system fully replaced for another 18 years or so, but we're making significant progress. We seem to be ahead of schedule. And so over time, if that program continues, we will have largely very accurate meters installed at all times, which may not be the case right now.
Let me ask the question slightly differently. How many mechanical meters do we have left? Ballpark me, you don't have to give me the exact number, and no percentage point.
Probably 11,000.
11,000 mechanical meters. Roughly how long? You spread that out over 20 years, or do you have an estimate for how long it'll be before
Over
those?
20 years.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, and then I have another question. Like you were saying that, I mean, I can't look at the whole chart because I'm online, but the chart that's in front of you, the water loss part where you're saying there's leaks in the system and then the fire department uses water, et cetera. What is the long-term plan to reduce that? Like, is there a long-term maintenance thing to replace pipelines after so many years before they break? Is there any long-term plans, like 5, 10, 15, 20 years to replace
Yes, there is a
aging
plan.
pipeline so you don't lose large amounts of water with breakage?
Yes, ma'am. There is a plan, but it also takes a lot of money to implement that. So moving forward in the next few years, hopefully we can start updating certain areas in town, the older areas that haven't been updated with some new pipeline to mitigate the leak. But you also have to take into account we have not only older pipeline, but sometimes back in other, I don't know, the 80s were really popular for putting in steel saddles. Now we're upgrading those with bronze saddles. So there's water loss everywhere that sometimes just takes a while to get to the surface before we notice it. So moving forward, hopefully in the next 3 years, we can start putting more pipeline in the ground and getting rid of the older system.
And to add to that, John, every year engineering goes ahead and proposes to the board their long-term capital expenditures.
Yes.
And by long-term, what is it, Renee, 20 year? We project 20 years out, and engineering is looking at a replacement of lines, replacement of tanks, replacement of pumps, everything that can affect the system in terms of leaks and mechanical operations. So the answer to your question is yes, we do make that plan, and it's typically 20 years out.
Well, if you are really interested and you want to be bored to death, that's included in the budget every year.
Yeah.
And you can go back to budget data when we passed the most recent budget, and there was a 20-year plan for spending for capital.
All right,
And it's important that water systems fund those maintenance budgets
right.
so we can keep up with those things.
So the La Mirage area is a good example of an area that's probably beyond its service life. We have a plan to go and advocate for funding so that we can replace that. You know, and we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we don't want to, you know, it would be nice if we had an unlimited budget, but our customers pay for that upgrade in many cases. So we have to balance, you know, rate increases with water saving and a systematic plan to go through and replace those areas that are the oldest and might have the highest potential for leaks. So it's a fairly complicated calculus about how you go about doing that.
Renee, have any other questions?
Well, I assume there's grant money through the state that the water district could apply for, but I realize that every water district is applying for funds, so I assume that's on the drawing board to get extra money to do some of these.
The staff is always looking for grants.
We're
The
looking
state's
for-
broke, the county's not doing terribly well. There are other organizations, federal government occasionally has grant money available, but often a significant portion of the fees for, let's say, replacing transmission lines that are over 30 years old and are starting to fail comes from bonding, which is why the water district, it's important for us to bond for those things and keep that in mind. The common complaint from groundwater authority staff is that we haven't given them $25 million by bonding it out. But we told them then, and we maintain now, that our credit rating is good, and we need to keep it there by bonding out only for those things that are necessary to get done here.
Thank you.
We look for grant funding, but you know, when it comes to looking for grants, you have to meet certain requirements.
Right.
And a lot of times we just don't meet those requirements, or this particular project doesn't meet those requirements, so.
We're always
keep
looking for
looking.
money, Renee.
Mhm.
Any grant, anything that's out there, any funding that's available, we keep our eyes open and we have people that notify us if something's out there.
You know,
Okay.
One of the things that's happened in the recent years is DWR is responsible for the state water revolving fund. And
No.
it used to be a good source for funding. However, they basically transferred a lot of those loans into grants so that revolving fund no longer revolves. There's no money left in that particular state fund that, like there was supposed to be. It was great money at like 1.5% to 2%. It doesn't exist anymore because it's not there. I mean, they've basically given it all away. So people like us that need it, it's not available for us. And I don't see the state right now being in a financial position where they're going to build that money up. We'll see.
Little caveat, I mean, there's still money there,
Yeah.
but their priorities change every year on what types of projects or what type of systems they're going to prioritize for that money.
So, and I would, yeah, and they're gonna
And
be
it's
tight,
the-
they're gonna be
It's
tighter
the
on that.
State Water Resources Control Board that controls
I
that.
control as well. Yeah, that's what I
Two,
thought.
DWR is Department of Water Resources for the public, and I think everybody who's online knows that, but I wanted to make sure that was in the record. And the second is that the last board meeting, we authorized the retention of someone up in Sacramento to help us identify opportunities for grants and to advocate for us when we apply, if and when we apply for those grants.
Any other questions before we move on? Any other comments or anything?
No, not for me.
That was a pretty darn good presentation. All right. I think I had all my questions asked. How much staff time, physical or fiscal solution, time on it. All right, well, I guess we're ready to move on to Board of Director goals. So everybody, what's your goal? Where do we want to start? Chuck, anything?
I just want to see the district function continue to progress the way we're doing. I think we're doing good. I think our customers have shown an excellent history of conservation. I don't think we're in bad shape. I think we're doing very well. I think our staff is doing a great job. I'm happy with how things are going.
Great. Mr. St. Amand.
So the focus on replacing the Brady transmission line is important to me, and as is the replacement of all the transmission lines that are the steel line, concrete lines. They have to be swapped out. So that's an important priority. And that's one that sprang up, once we're done with that, then we can move on to some of the other, or hopefully squeeze some of the other projects in for enhancing the system. For example, there's a line that runs around, Bowman. It necks down from one pipe size to a smaller pipe size. I'd like to see that addressed next. And that's my goals. Thank you. Those are my goals.
Thank you. Stan?
I would agree with the two previous speakers, directors. In terms of our local understanding and our local operations, I think we've got it well in hand. We got a great staff. They're doing their job. My concern is the 5-year replenishment fee. We paid out over $15 million. That's $3 million a year. We're the only people paying it, and I think it needs to come to an end just as soon as it can. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, I agree with everyone, what they said previously. I have a couple of things. La Mirage is important. I think, in my opinion, that's a ticking time bomb. As old as that, how old is that system, John?
Some of it's 1942.
Holy mackerel. So that one's, I think needs a watchful eye and look for grant money and help with that one. The second one is education. I think that, I look out here, I wish there were a dozen people. I appreciate Renee calling us in. I wish there were 10 more people like her calling in, because you just cannot understand how we operate if all you look at is your water bill every month. You look at your water bill every month and you're shocked. Oh my gosh, it's going up. They've had rate increases and this, but my water use is down. I mean, all kinds of, but none of those people come to talk to one of us to say, what does all this mean on my bill? Where does the money go? How is it done? I think, and no one has the magic formula for public education. If anybody ever figured it out, you'll put it in a bottle and sell it, because every organization goes through the same thing. I don't care if it's City Hall, the GA, or whatever. The public does not fully understand how the operations take place. And it doesn't take a lot of time. If you sit on meetings, and I'm sure Renee probably knows tenfold over what the average customer does because of her questions. And that's important. I don't know how to make that happen. So if any of you ever figure it out, I don't know, maybe we want to give toasters out to people who come to meetings. I don't know. But something, I wish we could do something. And the last thing I'll talk about is replenishment fee. And I know that we've been paying on it now for 3.5 years, roughly. And I would like to know, and that would be maybe a legal issue to look at it. My belief is the goal was 25 million or 5 years. And I don't know if it's whichever one comes first or whatever, but that tells me that we're approaching the end of payment of the replenishment fee. And I don't know the answer to that, Jim. I get asked the question, okay, well, it's 25 million. If you hit 25 million, you're done. Or is it 5 years? So I haven't done, maybe I can do more research myself, but I hope it's something we could answer. Which one is it?
Well, we've heard the GA say in the past that there is not a firm date on that. I would have to go look at the language for what it says, but I do recall it was pitched as a 5-year replenishment fee to purchase water, but we're 15 million into it and we don't even have a drop of water secured yet. So we can check into that. I mean,
we're nearing that point. And I hope we do something before that time, like Stan is pushing for. But if not, I think we need to understand.
In 5 years.
Can I ask a question about that, Ron?
Please.
So Jim, if it was initiated as a 5-year, if we could find that out, because I know when the replenishment fee was placed, there was an objection and people had a filing date and a time that they could file to challenge the replenishment.
Right.
So is that what would need to happen again?
I think.
No, well, but first of all, I think that the replenishment fee, if I go back and I look at it, it's going to be based upon numbers and not dates.
Okay.
I don't think the statute limitation comes into play at all here. And for whatever the sunset language is, I just don't know that off the top of my head. But I do not recall there being a drop dead date or a statement that this thing ends in 5 years. I do agree that it was pushed as that, but I don't believe that there is necessarily language to that effect within the documents. But I'll take a look at it.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
I don't want to get into a big discussion about it because that wasn't what we're here for, but because the concern that I have is that no one else had to pay the replenishment fee.
Yeah.
Except for us. So if their goal was to raise $50 million,
That was the figure they bandied
that was the
about.
figure they put, and since no one else is paying it, and I don't want to see us on the hook for the 50 million. You see what I'm getting at here? That we always viewed it as a portion of it over a certain amount of time. And since no one else paid it, someone needs to look at those numbers, Jim.
I will, but I think you did say it was a $50 million goal, if you will.
Right.
The district was supposed to pay approximately half of it.
25 million. Yes,
Yeah.
I remember.
And so if Mojave and Sparrow Valley Mineral are now out of the ballgame, then the amount of water needed should decrease.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, check into it. I don't want to get a
Will
big
do.
discussion here on it. Let us know when you get a chance. And as far as the general operations district, I'm pleased with it. I think that we're progressing. I think we're tackling those problems as they occur and preparing ourselves our best we can. I think the future's bright. I do. I think that the water usage is coming down and will continue through conservation or whatever other methods people are using. And I'm very proud of that because you look back at the records where we were pumping 10,000 acre feet a year. And what are we going to pump this year, Ty, do you know? The last fiscal year, yeah.
5.5.
5.5, yeah. Look, that's amazing, absolutely amazing. I surely appreciate it. All right,
You don't realize we got a lot of rain.
yes, we did. Yeah, well, I expect to see December and such dropped off is,
You can't count on those numbers going down.
yeah, yeah,
Unless you can count on Mother Nature giving us.
yeah.
It's great. For
I don't know. I saw a lot of people's sprinklers on during the rain as I'd go around. I was going, what the heck's going on here?
Trying to get ahead of the curve.
I know, I was going to stop and tell them and turn off their water. Okay. All right. Well, any other comments, questions, anything? Callers? Nope. All right. We're going to move on to item 7C, review of any outstanding issues, review and discussion of outstanding issues. George, you sort of put it there that way. What are outstanding issues do we have?
I mean, for a presentation like this, the one thing that comes to mind is just to get the board to comment on their vision of the future for the water district. We are experiencing a number of consolidations. We're looking at LAFCO expanding our boundaries. What is the vision of the board, as we move forward in time? This is just the most general question about what does the water district look like 5 or 10 years from now?
You make a point about consolidations and LAFCO and all that. I don't feel like we're in limbo. You have a consolidation that may happen and it doesn't happen. You have another one that you're looking at that is happening. What's going on with the potential consolidation with the CSD? It's always, we don't know where we are yet. That always bothers me, but I guess that's the way the wheels turn, isn't it?
It is, it's really the board that we look to for the direction of the general, willingness to move ahead with consolidations or not move ahead with consolidations, or, work with LAFCO to expand our sphere of influence or our boundaries, or work more closely with other small districts to, help them out more. I did get a call from Rand Community Services District, and they're looking to work more closely with us, things like that. It's always good for the board to, give us their thoughts on where are we going in the future.
Many years ago, I don't know, maybe 8, maybe 6 or so, we talked at the board about preparing and planning in the future, the way we set up our piping system, that there could be potential consolidations in these small little mutuals that are around here, and how are we setting ourselves up for that? So we've always sort of looked at it, that the potential existed, and we wanted to be prepared for it. So I don't think there's any doubt, unless the board objects, that if a consolidation is warranted, whether it be requested by the state, requested by the mutual, or requested by the GA, that we're open to it. And so on, I'm probably that. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, speaking of that, I know we were looking at the consolidation for the START system, and that was going to require us to extend our boundaries by not very far, but a little bit. So there's not really an adverse reaction to a well owner if our boundaries encompass their area. They could still have a well according to our policy. So I guess my question is for Jim, what would be the harm in approaching LAFCO now and trying to encompass a larger area for our boundaries because we're looking at these consolidations coming
Yeah.
along, and I don't want to have to go through
Every
a
time.
expansion of our boundaries every single time. So what would be the process required to go to LAFCO, say we'd like to expand our boundaries to encompass this much of the basin to where there is a potential for consolidation? That way it's there, it's done, and we're in that process instead of having to wait. Well, now we got to do this one.
And before Jim answers, if, for instance, that we had already started consolidation processes or LAFCO expanding of our territory for the CSD, that probably would have included Stark, would it not?
Yeah, and there's actually no problem with doing that. And George and I have probably been talking to LAFCO for about a year now, even before we were aware of the Inyo-Kern consolidation. And even internally and with LAFCO, we've always been talking about what the system would look like out there in that Inyo-Kern area if there was a consolidation. And in talking with LAFCO about that, it does include an expanded sphere of influence and boundary, and it would not be limited to that, but also looking at all those surrounding areas that are going to need consolidation, and we are consolidating right now. So we're already working on that, Chuck, with them. And in terms of trying to get financing to help us get there as well, we're working on that as well.
Okay.
Is there a cost? A quick question for him. Is there a cost involved when we go to expanding these areas with LAFCO? I mean, for us, in other words, is there money has to be paid out? Is there, what happens?
Fees, other than
Yeah.
extra staff work, are there?
Sorry, Jim. Yeah.
What kind of fees? The
Well,
LAFCO fees?
you mentioned that do we budget when we're, yeah.
Well,
when we're-
I'm talking about like for construction, you could, for
Okay.
example, if we were to
just
consolidate,
expanding the boundaries, is there some kind of fee involved?
yeah, there would be a fee, the process that you
Okay.
got to come up with 12 maps and stuff
Okay.
like that. It would be staff time. I don't think the fees are excessive. It's more of the time in
Okay.
generating the documents needed.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think that would be neat to pursue.
Just a general comment on the consolidations. I'm generally speaking in favor of consolidations, except what I'm concerned about is that we become the middleman and misunderstood with regard to our objectives. I don't want to have people pointing fingers at us from both sides saying, you're the problem. We want to help people who want to be helped. What I don't want to do is try to help people who, first of all, don't want our help and maybe don't need our help. So we need to keep that in mind and make sure that everybody is in agreement before we start getting
Oh, I
too
think
involved in anything.
David?
So Stan's reiterating the board's policy that we do not engage in hostile consolidations. Either they come to, small water user groups come to us and ask for consolidation, or in the instance of the Inyo-Kern Community Services District, it appears very much that the state of California is going to force a consolidation. What we're talking about here is getting ahead of the pressure for consolidation, which is going to increase both as the state increases the requirements of the small water companies and mutuals, the requirements for reporting and so forth, which make it increasingly increasingly more unaffordable for those organizations to operate properly, and for organizations that are operating but are not able, well, even in the case of the Community Services District, not able to operate at the level at which the state is demanding, and that level will probably continue to go up. So ultimately, all the consolidations, one way or the other, are driven by the policies of the state of California, and we're just trying to get ahead of that.
Well, I'm not sure that they're actually increasing their requirements. I think they're enforcing their requirements they've had for years and years, quite frankly.
That's true. Their enforcement's improving. There are new requirements that are getting laid on, and the state of California has not said they're going to enforce it, but have been encouraging consolidations for at least 4 years now. And their policy is to get all the small mutuals and all the small water companies folded into any nearby large water company that they can find. And we've been asked to work with companies, smaller companies that are as far as 30 miles away, in some cases over an hour drive away. And that is what the state wants. And it's driving this issue, I believe.
I want to reiterate what David said, is that the water district in no way is going to try any hostile takeover of any mutuals or anything. It's up to them to come to us, or it could be a state decision that hey, you use a mutual, you need to make it happen. But I don't think we're out there soliciting any way, Stan. So I think what we're hoping is that there's a mutual agreement for everybody to do it. And I think one example where there wasn't a complete mutual agreement was, which one recently, Renee, backed out that was starting?
That was Hometown.
Hometown. I mean, at first they wanted to do it, and we said, fine, we'll work with you, and we'll get the state involved and everything else. And then they just backed out entirely, and no one's twisting their arm. They just backed out. So, but I think it's beneficial to what Chuck is saying, that we continue to work with LAFCO and say, hey, the potential exists, and we're not going to force anybody to get rid of their well or anything but we don't want to have to go through a LAFCO exercise every single time there's another consolidation of some kind.
No, and I think it's beneficial for the whole valley. It gives more people an option to be on this board.
Yep.
It just expands everything out. They can have their well if they have a well. We sure don't want to take that right away from them.
Right.
But if we can get the LAFCO boundaries expanded, it benefits not having to do it every single time there's something happens.
All right.
Yeah, there's 2 private well owners on the board of directors currently.
Correct.
Yep.
And if I had a well, I'd love it.
Any other questions from the board or the staff? I think we have a caller on. All right, caller, we're listening.
Yes, this is Renee West Lusk again. My first question is, when you do these consolidations, like Stark Street, and then there's other small mutuals, you're actually extending a pipeline to them, correct?
Correct.
So how does that affect the other small wells? Because Judy Decker's brought this up more than once, and I think it is a concern. When the water district is going to need more water, then there's the problem. You'll have to drill more wells, possibly to accommodate all these small
Let me see.
mutuals that you are
Then I'll go to you, Chuck.
consolidating with. So isn't that going to hurt the smaller, shallow wells
Well,
as a whole, if you've got to drill? And does the state understand that part?
First of all, you have to understand that with the wells that we have, that we at one time produced well over 9,000 acre feet a year. So you would talk about increasing our usage almost double before we'd have to do any more wells. So the idea that we have to drill more wells if we consolidate, to me, of course, I haven't put the numbers on paper, but the fact that we used to produce well over 9,000, in some cases 10,000 acre feet a year, and we're down to 5,500, tells me there won't be any need for well drilling. Now, will the water district's use increase? Obviously, because you're providing water. But how much water do these mutuals consume? If you assume that a mutual has, call it 10 hookups in their private residences, that isn't a lot of water. What is it per residence? We figure we have an estimate, so much per, 3.5 people, it's so many gallons, so it's not that much. So to get the idea that we're going to be drilling wells everywhere is not going to happen. And it doesn't need to happen, because there's no way that kind of water is being produced by those mutuals out there that we can't already sustain. Okay, Chuck, you had to add to that?
It was pretty much what you said.
Yeah.
The pumping is spread, Renee, and the areas that we're talking about, the consolidations right now, you're actually seeing an increase in the water table in those areas, because in the past, the district did pump in that area more. We now pump further out, and we're seeing an increase in the water levels in those wells. we're not, as Ron said, we're not going to go in and drill new wells. The water's just going to be pumped and then we'll spread the pumping out. So
Thank you.
I think if anything, it's going to show an increase in water level.
VA estimate for combined of all the mutuals, what a pot of water usage do they have?
I want to say it was 700 or 800 acre feet or something.
That's
like
about right.
So
Yeah.
if we were to take over every single mutual
Yeah.
in the entire valley, that
s-
would be the
that.
max.
We're well within the capacity of the system already. That's the thing. And George, what'd you have?
Yeah, just wanted to talk a little bit about the economics of it. As you bring people on to our system, they have to pay, and we just got through spending a considerable amount of time talking about the replenishment fee and how the replenishment fee is a tremendous incentive for customers to use less water. I think, you can't say anything is a absolute fact, but I believe that as customers come onto the water district and they have to pay the water district bill, that is an incentive for them to use less water. So the presumption that people will use more water as they come onto the water district system, I don't believe that that is true.
I guess what we're trying to say, Renee, is that if you look at the overall system here, that we can support, is like Renee said, if every mutual out there or every pumper out there, estimated roughly 800 acre feet a year was to come onto our system, we don't have to expand, we don't have to increase the pumping of our system.
Okay. Okay. And then I have another question regarding the ICSD, the Inyakern Community Service District consolidation. If that should happen, the water district won't really be, our water system won't really be connected to theirs, correct?
At some point.
It's going to be a separate system still?
So Renee, I think first you have to understand that the water district essentially has 5 separate water systems that are all interconnected. So they're based on elevation. So we have A zone, B zone, C zone, D zone, and E zone. And that's because of the way we supply water. So those systems are all have the capability. We have the capability to pump water from one zone to another or to let water flow by gravity down to another system. How the Inyokern CSD would be tied in, would it be a separate zone? Would we now have a new zone? It would be interconnected with us at some level. It could be something as remote as water from wells that we currently use goes there, and that might be the extent of the connection, or it could be a pipe extension from one of our existing zones out there. But we haven't gotten down the path of the engineering to determine how it would be connected, but you have to sort of understand how our system is really built and operated to really get into the details of the question you're asking.
I think what she asked is, would their system be connected to our system, their present system? My answer to that is no, it wouldn't be.
Because that's what you said at a prior meeting, because I
Right.
asked the question before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be.
How would it not be
Yeah, I think it-
connected?
Well, I don't, I'm not saying not connect. I'm not saying that, I'm saying probably wouldn't use their tank. We probably wouldn't use their pumps. We probably, yeah.
I
You
think
can use their
I
facilities.
think
We're not using their
another thing that-
facilities. That's
I
the
think
point.
another thing you need to, that the public should be aware is that, what the hookup looks like will be largely dependent upon the money that is available from the
Right.
state. We could design a $10,000 dollar hookup and the state could say, I only got 5, do it again. So what it looks like is what they give us because we can't pay for the consolidation.
Exactly.
The state would have money to pay for the consolidation and improvements to or replacement of in your current community services district's current equipment.
I want to make the point with what Renee said. There's some of their piping we may use, and I don't even know if that's a true statement, but the facility itself is in question, whether you would actually use the facility. But it'd be our water being pumped out there.
I mean, initially, you're going to have to run that system separately
Yeah.
until you can get an
Make your
interconnection.
connection.
Until you make the connection.
Ties with the Naval Air Warfare Center Station, and we have interties with Trona, West End, Argus, and Pioneer Point. So it's not unreasonable to have a tie into the Inyokern District area once it's the Community Services District area, once everything has been addressed with the consolidation.
But we don't know any of that yet.
We don't know that yet.
Don't have any idea. That's all in the future. When the state comes forward and says, we need to move on this, and then the engineers are going to have to sit down and say, what is the system going to look like?
That's what the engineering.
And
does.
that's when we'll know.
So you'll have to come up with a plan to do the infrastructure, the water district will?
Once the state says do it, if they say do it, then that's when we have to come up with a plan.
And honestly, we're still learning this process. This is the first mandatory consolidation that's occurred in Kern County that anybody involved with has gone through. So we're just waiting to hear back from, right now, the ball's in the state board's court. We've reported, and we're waiting to see what they tell us to do next.
Okay, but getting back to, you're saying at first the two systems wouldn't be interconnected, but down the road they might be. And so then the water district would be in charge of maintaining, repairing, replacing, refurbishing their current system so
If
that,
there's-
If there's a
If there's a
and they-
consolidation, it will be true, but the expenses that you're listing off would be paid for by the state.
correct, I understand that.
Okay, sorry.
But they have to pay for it because the water district has no money for this. That's ridiculous.
Then
Yeah,
we can't charge you for in your current interconnections.
right.
Any improvements to the physical plant of the community service district is either going to have to be paid for by the state or ultimately laid on the feet of the people that are out there who have meters.
Would the interconnection line that you talk about down the road, would the state have to pay for that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then in the meantime, though, the most pressing, if this consolidation is forced upon both parties, the water district and the Inyakern Kern Community Service District, then the first things you would have to do would be probably to repair and maintain, and you'd have to drill another well for them because they're on one well and the well's ready to collapse. From what I understand, it's in poor condition.
Renee, you're getting
Yeah.
way into the engineering aspects of this. We're not here to engineer this now. Those are all good questions, and maybe they'll come up when we get further down the line, and we'll keep the public informed where we are on it. But
Okay.
I can just tell you this, the bottom line is anything we do out there, even if it starts out with management of their system, while the consolidation plans and engineering taking place, all that has to be paid for by the state.
So there's an
Correct, yes. I'm not disputing that.
So,
I
so,
understand.
yeah, so we
The
don't know.
water
what it's-
district has no funds for this at
I
all.
mean, at the
Yeah.
top of my head, I would think that if we were to give it a full consolidation, that we would probably not be using their wells, that we would probably be pumping from our system, and we would probably not be using their tank because I don't know what kind of shape it is in, or even if we need it. So that's just my guess right now, but it's all guesswork, and there's no sense in, spending a whole lot of engineering time on it until we were told to move forward on it, in which case we will keep the public as informed as we can.
Okay,
one more.
and then one other question regarding the ICSD, they would still be in charge of their light system and sewer treatment, right? The water
Yes.
district is only going to deal with the water system.
That's our assumption. We don't know, but the state has not given us explicit instruction. It is first of all, our desire that they stand on their own feet and they can maintain and support their own water system. If that doesn't happen, then we would like to see that part peeled off for the consolidation, because we don't really want to become a city light / sewer system operator as well. But we don't know what the state has in mind or how this would work. They haven't informed us yet.
But the state realizes that the water district really isn't set up to be a lighting system,
That's correct.
what is it, contractor or wastewater treatment contractor, correct?
Yes,
Like-
We do have the legislative powers to deal with sewage, not lighting though. And lighting, I understand, is handled through an assessment or an improvement district that's maintained by the county, and then they pay somebody to take care of the lighting.
Yeah, it's all contracted.
Yeah, but right now, the consolidation order only pertains to water and nothing else.
I just want to make a quick comment. I think you guys have all reiterated this, but we do not want to take over Inyo Kern Community Service District. We're not trying to aggressively take them over in any way. We want to do what has to be done to help them if that's what it comes down to. But I want to make it very clear as a director, if we do consolidate within Inyo Kern, I would want to make sure that that system was ran by our system because our operators are they're responsible. If our operators are running that system and something happens on that system, they're held liable. And as a director, I would want to ensure that our system was in full compliance when it was providing water at any time. So, because our operators would be the ones that would be responsible for that. And it could be jail time for, I mean, it's that serious. So I want to make sure.
Okay, thank you for answering the questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we move on to, look like item number 8? Are we ready to move on? Any other, as George said, any other outstanding issues that we want to bring up or be aware of? I think we've covered them all in one way or form or the other. All right. Board comments and I guess future agenda items, when we say that, is the future workshop items. But any final comments before we move into closed session? Chuck, anything? David?
I want to thank the staff for their preparation for this meeting. I found the information presented to be very interesting. Thank you.
Stan? Okay, last thing I want to say is everybody's noticing that these workshops are changing and I tend to want to put it in the hands of the staff to say what's on this work. What is the board, what do we need to discuss with the board more thoroughly than we normally do or have time for in a regular board session? And so that's why I like to see them come up with their ideas what they want. And obviously we want input from the board if there's things they want to talk about. Because I didn't want to make them so cookbook because I want to make sure the staff gets the direction and the answers they need on things that are in their mind that they don't normally get at our board meeting. And the same thing with the board, or the questions that we have on things, especially when it came to these goals and priorities for the water usage and losses. I think that's so important to us. And again, thank you for all your time to put this together. And with that, I'm going to close this open session or adjourn this open session into closed session at, looks like 10:39. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everybody. We adjourned the closed session at 11:23, and we're reopening the open session here at 11:26. So with that, I'll ask our attorney to make comment on the closed session.
The board met in closed session and there was no action taken that requires disclosure under the Brown Act. That's all I have.
Well, thank you so much. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting for today and thank everybody that's listening and was here. Thank you so much. 11:27.